Hey everybody, I wanted to take a second and answer the chicken stock formula question. Help you to figure out if you didn't get extra credit, why you got the answer wrong. And for those of you who didn't make the attempt, I'll force you to follow along. Because this is an important kind of thing for you to be able to know. So the chicken stock formula question basically works like this. If you need to make 800 gallons of stock, how many pounds of bones will you need based on the formula that was presented in the textbook, right? It seems like a very straightforward type of a question. And so the textbook formula for chicken stock is very straightforward. 6 quarts of water, 8 pounds of bones, and 1 pound of mirepoix. Since the question is asking about bones and stock, the eventual stock, we can pretty much figure by knowing how much water goes into it. Then we have to figure out the relationship between the water and the bones. Pretty straightforward. Now, basically, you can go about solving this one of 2 ways. You can just try to multiply it. For most students, this is going to be the simplest, although it isn't a great way to go because you don't end up with a ratio. The other way is to try to figure out the ratio of the bones to the water. And remember that a ratio is simply a relationship. So here are the 2 challenges. If you're going to use a ratio to solve this problem, you got to realize that pounds of bones and quarts of water aren't equivalent measurements. They're not, you can't just like multiply the 2. You can't go, all right, well, I need 800 gallons, so I'm going to multiply all the numbers by 800. Some of you did that, I know, because you were asking for an astronomical amount of bones. The problem is that you can't take something that is by weight, a pound, and something that is by volume, a quart, and just try to use them interchangeably. You got to make those 2 measurements equal out. And for us, since we've already got 2 things in this formula that are by pound, then we're going to have to figure out the pounds of water and figuring out how much 6. So if you're going to solve this for a ratio, you have to look up. You got to figure out some things. You got to figure out how many pounds of water are in the original formula. Original formula is 6 quarts, right? Got to figure that out. Then you got to figure out how much does what we want weigh, because we have to keep that in proportion as well. So you can look this up on Google. It took me like maybe 20 seconds. A quart of water weighs about 2 pounds. Now it's not exact, but it's close enough. And there are 4 quarts in a gallon. I looked that up online. You know, it's one of those things that I sometimes forget. Looked it up online. 4 quarts of gallon in a water, 4 quarts in a gallon. And therefore, you know, a gallon of water is going to be what? All I got to do is do simple multiplying, right? Okay, so now we've got a new and improved formula. Instead of it calling for 6 quarts of water, now we've got 12 pounds of water. 8 pounds of bones to 12 pounds of water to 1 pound of mirepoix. So we have a ratio, a relationship. What is the relationship of bones to water? And it's 8 to 12. Now, like with any ratio of any kind, all you do is you divide the second number by the first number, and that gives you the relationship. So 8 divided by 12 is equal to 0.66. 66666, and then it's another number. But I rounded it up to 3 decimal places. 0.667. Okay, 0.667. I did not actually do any of this math. I did not use a calculator. I asked Siri. I did not. You don't have to. I didn't work out the details. I just figured out what it was I was looking for, and then I, cheated. Cheat away, man. Cheat away. The ratio of bones to water is 8 to 12. Or 8 divided by 12, 8/12, a fraction, or 0.667. Now we can move on and answer the question. We've already figured out that 800 gallons of stock is going to require 6,400 pounds of water. right? We already know that. Okay, now we can solve the problem. We know that 800 gallons of water weighs 6,400 pounds, right? Super easy. Now all we got to do is multiply what we want, the weight of all that stock, by our ratio. That's it. 6,400 times 0.667, and what is it, Siri? 4268.8. That was rounding up a little bit. Again, I know it's math, and I know that some of you really freaking hate math, but it's not that big of a deal. All right, so going through the whole ratio thing, a little bit tricky. Maybe not how you want to go. You could have just multiplied, and I know that some of you did because of the number that you got. So here is if you want to multiply it, here's the problem. The formula calls for 6 quarts of water, and the end result we're looking for is 800 gallons of stock. So obviously, quarts and gallons aren't the same thing. We're going to have to make some changes. If you're going to multiply this baby, you're going to have to figure it out. How many quarts of water are needed to make 800 gallons of stock? We know that 4 quarts equals a gallon. That's a fairly straightforward process, right? How many quarts are in 800 gallons of stock? 4 quarts is equal to 1 gallon. 4 quarts times 800 gallons equals 3,200 quarts. Now comes the interesting part. How many times are you going to have to multiply that recipe to give you 3,200 quarts? All right. Each formula, each recipe gives you 6 quarts. So you're going to have to divide 3,200 by 6. Divide 3,200 by 6, and you get 533 points, and it just keeps going. 533.333333333. I know that some of you got to this point because that was the answer you gave me. You told me how many times you needed to multiply the recipe, but you didn't do the final step. The final step is multiplying how many times I have to make the recipe by 8 pounds of bones. If you multiply how many times I'm going to make the recipe, 533 point whatever, by 8 pounds, then you get 4,266.66667. Round that up and you get 4,267. Slightly different number than if you go by the ratio. And that is because a gallon of water does not weigh exactly 8 pounds. A gallon of water does not weigh exactly 8 pounds. Now, here's the question. I know what you're thinking. Multiplying is so much easier than figuring out the ratio. Why would you go about the ratio? Because here's the reason why. Once I know the ratio, I know it, then it doesn't matter how much I need to make. I can multiply that same ratio by any number. Any number. I need to make 1,000 gallons of stock. I don't have to go back and do all of the math to figure out how many times I need to multiply the recipe. I can just multiply my ratio by 1,000 or 1,200 or 50. It doesn't matter. Now, once I have the ratio, I can solve the problem in every iteration forever. So if you got 4,265 to 4,268 in that range, you got extra credit, my friend. Good job.